Hello, I'm Keith Sutton, Chair of the Wake County Public School System Board of Education. It's been a week full of new developments. We are here today to share what we know and tell you what we expect to know soon about school calendars, school operations, and finances for next school year. Today's information will also include an important update regarding graduation ceremonies. With that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Kathy Moore. Superintendent Moore.
Thank you, Chair Sutton, and good morning. We are wrapping up Teacher Appreciation Week today. I've been inspired by many ways that our schools and families have honored our incredible educators this week. We have seen socially distanced parades, yard signs, special deliveries of gifts and cards by many of our students and families, many pictures and videos shared on social media. Thanks to all of you who helped our educators feel appreciated and loved. I'd also like to take a moment to speak to our student athletes, particularly those affected by the cancellation of winter championships and all spring sports, as well as their coaches, managers, trainers, parents, and fans. I fully understand that the decision to cancel athletics was made in the best interest of public health, and I support that decision. I also share the sadness and bitter disappointment caused by such an abrupt end to athletic competition. Athletics builds character, it builds friendships and school pride. It is an integral part of the school experience for thousands of students. I want our students to know their efforts were noted and appreciated. I also want to take a moment to celebrate one notable victory, even if the accomplishment is understandably bittersweet. The Southeast Raleigh Magnet High School girls basketball team was recently named 4A state co-champions. While perhaps not the end to the season they had envisioned, the Bulldogs should be proud of their remarkable run and proudly claim their share of that state title. No one knows for sure how this pandemic may affect athletics moving forward, but I want to make sure that we recognize our accomplishments and assure you that we will do everything in our power to safely return to play as soon as possible. Next, I'd like to take just a moment to speak about the topic of grading for the current school year. While state education leaders provided districts the basic framework for issuing grades a couple of weeks ago, that guidance did not address many of the details. As we have shared earlier, the State Board of Education decided there will be no final grades for elementary students. A pass or withdrawal grade will be issued for middle school students, and the choice of a letter grade or pass withdrawal will be available for grades 9 through 11. Using this guidance from the state, our academics team has been working daily to create thoughtful and fair guidelines that apply to all students in our district, pre-K through 11th grade. We recently gathered input from principals about how to best carry out that direction, and the guidelines are being finalized this week. We know that some students and parents have been anxiously waiting on this information, so I want you to know that we expect to share those details early next week. I'll now turn to some important decisions made by the state legislature that will affect both the current school year and next school year. For 1920, the legislature formally waived all end of course and end of grade testing. For 2020-2021, they decided all traditional calendar schools will begin on August 17th and end on June 11th. These traditional calendar dates, August 17th and June 11th, are now set by the legislature and cannot be changed by local school districts. Every district must also schedule 5 days of remote learning in 2020-2021 and submit a remote learning plan to the state by July 20th. The remote learning days can vary among districts. Wake has not scheduled its dates for its schools. Significant decisions are still pending for year-round calendar schools, modified calendar schools, early colleges, and restart schools. We are working through numerous details associated with factors that could affect the start date and/or day-to-day school logistics. With that, I will reiterate a point that I made last week, that parents should expect school to operate quite differently than what we have come to know. While nothing is known for sure right now, we can expect some social distancing requirements will be in place. That could, for example, limit the number of students who can be in a classroom or a school building at once. That in turn very likely would mean we would have to rely heavily on online learning and cycle students in and out to meet public health requirements. Those decisions have not been made, but they illustrate the type of flexibility that we will need in order to make our next school year as successful as possible. I know it will be a major adjustment with many unforeseen obstacles, but if the response to the current crisis has taught us anything, it's that our teachers, administrators, students, and families are resilient and adaptable. In closing, I'd like to just add my heartfelt thanks to all the parents and students who are working hard every day to make the most of remote learning. I know it's been a stressful process, and I just want you to know that we appreciate your patience and your diligence. More importantly, your teachers appreciate the effort. Teachers and administrators are doing their best to respond to your feedback in a way that makes remote learning both meaningful and manageable. We also can't wait for a return to more normal times. So remain calm, stay engaged, and stay motivated to learn. In the end, our kids will be the winners. With that, I turn it over to Chair Sutton.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore. And again, congratulations to the Southeast Raleigh Lady Bulldogs. In addition to the calendar changes required by the recent General Assembly legislation, lawmakers also included significant additional funding to support school districts during this challenging period. Statewide, the COVID-19 relief bill provides $75 million for school nutrition, $47 million for devices and connectivity, and $17 million for summer learning programs, among many other measures. While Wake County will receive only a small portion of the overall funding, the money will be critical as we face an uncertain fiscal future. I want to thank the legislature and the governor for acting quickly to get this bill passed. While on the topic of finances, our school board unanimously approved Superintendent Moore's proposed budget this past Tuesday, and we have sent it to county commissioners for their consideration. We are fully aware of the economic hardships the pandemic has inflicted on our entire community. So we know the school system's request, while much smaller than years past, will be difficult to meet. We also know that the $29 million in additional local funding falls far short of the educational needs and discrepancies exposed by this pandemic. Our county commissioners have provided generous support for public education in recent years, and I look forward to working with them as we strive to maintain and improve one of our community's most important assets. As I've done in past weeks, I now would like to share some excellent news regarding food distribution. This week, we expanded the number of food distribution locations and big bus food truck neighborhood sites. We now have 59 sites throughout the county, serving hot lunches and breakfast items prepared by our dedicated child nutrition staff, including our big bus food trucks, which are delivering food to 19 neighborhood locations. Just this week, we've served more than 117,000 meals to children, averaging more than 23,400 meals every single day. Since our buildings closed in March, we've served more than 780,000 meals. Again, we cannot thank our child nutrition staff and bus drivers enough for all they're doing to care for our community and our children. They have been dependable heroes and essential workers from day one. Thank you. I'd also like to highlight the efforts of Wake Up and Read, the long-standing collaboration between our district, Wake County Libraries, and other community organizations that support literacy. Every year, these partners help collect books to be distributed through schools and community centers to students who need them the most. This year, Wake Up and Read plans to move forward with the safe distribution of approximately 115,000 books to students from 13 partner schools and community organizations. Now more than ever, it is essential that all students have access to books at home. Thank you to Wake Up and Read for their unwavering commitment to promoting literacy for all. Finally, I'd like to share an update regarding graduation ceremonies. This week, Superintendent Moore met with a group of parents to discuss options available to graduates at this point in the pandemic. On Wednesday, I joined the superintendent and roughly 30 high school seniors who are scheduled to graduate. They provided excellent feedback and suggestions. This information was then combined with advice from principals. Taken together, their message was clear. They are heartbroken about what it happened. More than anything, they want more chances to be together. They want a June celebration, but understand the realities of this pandemic. They are willing to wait, but understand quickly disperse once June turns to July and then to August. Based on that feedback, the school district has decided to formally cancel our traditional in-person graduation ceremonies. It is no longer realistic to believe these events, which often draw thousands of people, will be safe or allowed by health officials. Virtual video ceremonies are strongly being considered to honor our graduates in June. If health guidance allows, we hope these ceremonies will be followed by customized events planned by each school in June or July. We understand the need to retain as much tradition as possible. I wish from the bottom of my heart that we could have traditional graduation ceremonies, but in the end, we cannot jeopardize the safety of our students, families, their friends, and loved ones. A proper send-off in the current conditions is a huge task, a task that will take time if we want to ensure that it is done right. So rather than hope for the best, we will work to make sure that it happens. By this time next week, I believe we should have details to share so students and school communities can make plans to celebrate the class of 2020 in ways that will be remembered for a lifetime. We will now take questions from the media. Please state your name and the news organization you represent.
Hey, Randy, with Media 17, we're wondering if percentage and usage of the laptop learning, have you seen any decreases in those or students still engaged this past week as they've been in previous
Randy, this is Lisa. I can't hear your question. Can you restate it, please?
We're wondering if a usage on the laptops of remote learning, have you all seen any decreases? Have teachers said anything about it's harder to keep students engaged? We had someone reach out to us saying that attendance of people logging on was very low this week compared to previous weeks. Is there any truth in that?
So I'll just take a stab at that. We've not pulled data for this week. We were actually just reviewing some data from the last few weeks that show a big increase in logins of students. But we're not formally taking attendance right now. We're actually working with our principals and teachers to get a more formal look at how many kids are actually engaging. But we do not have any specific information to this week or overall. We should have that soon, though. Do you have anything, Mr. Sutton?
No, nothing to add to that. You covered it all.
Currently here from the News and Observer. Have you considered doing what some of the other districts do for the graduation, such as holding events in parking lots at malls?
So I'll start there. So I think that there are certainly, that option is certainly out there and available. We want to make sure that we're following guidelines from our health officials and our community officials, government officials, to make sure that whatever we do comports to what they would have us do. But that is an idea that has been brought up, and it is one that we would certainly look at. I think we just want to make sure that we can do something in June in the traditional timeline for our seniors, and then have that followed up, so long as timelines and regulations allow, with something more specific and more traditional at a later time.
Hey, this is Leslie with WRAL. I had a question. So one parent reached out expressing concerns about if something like this happens again where we have to do remote learning. Are you guys doing anything to improve? Some parents and students are having problems with consistency as far as some classes are at this time, some are live, some are just an email assignment. Are you guys doing anything to kind of get a concrete, plan?
So I'll start with that, Mr. Sutton. As a part of the remote learning plan for the 2020-2021 school year, where we are required by the legislation that was passed this weekend to add 5 days of remote learning, they are asking school districts to address some questions around consistency, expectations, roles, and responsibilities as a part of moving into the next school year. And we are doing that by trying to gather feedback from our educators now to understand what the pros and cons, the barriers and drivers are of how they are engaging students. And we actually will be putting out a survey to parents as well to ask some questions that will help us make sure that whether it is continued through the rest of this school year or as we move into the next school year, that the feedback that we are getting will help us improve what we're doing with students.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add that, prior to this, we were not a one-to-one district, and because of that, we were not a virtual district. And we've been much in a response mode to this crisis, but the board and the administration are very keenly aware of the challenges and opportunities going forward to move towards a virtual district. And so we are beginning to think about and we'll sometime in the near future begin a more formal process to look at how these changes will impact plans for the future and move into a virtual district.
Currently from the News Observer, can you go into a little more detail about how the virtual ceremonies will be happening then, and what may be coming up with those other events you said after things get better?
So I'll start. So we don't have a lot of detail in that yet. The purpose of meeting with some parents this week and students and principals who I think have a webinar, maybe even today, is to get some additional feedback on what that celebration recognition would look like. We hope to share some details next week as we get more work done and more feedback collected. For this week, we mostly just wanted to make sure that parents and families understood, and our seniors in particular, that we were not going to have the traditional ceremonies as scheduled. Mr. Sutton.
I'll just add there are several options that are on the table. We've not narrowed those down to a final decision. You mentioned parking lots and that sort of thing. We've got several schools that have quite sizable parking lots, as well as other possible venues in the county. We're hoping that we can provide some district level guidance to all high schools and ceremonies, but at the same time allow for each of those schools and school communities to again customize a graduation experience that everybody can enjoy and one that will be memorable.